Hey, alright, welcome back YouTube. Brother Kimo here with Reload Hawaii. We're going to be talking about the two sidearms that the US military has used over the past 103 plus years. That's right, there's only been two. The 1911 that served from 1911 to around 1985, and the Beretta M9/92 as it's known in the civilian world from around 1985 to present day. So guys, the main purpose of this video is I'm going to make it pretty simple. I don't want to get into why the military chose one or the other, or the different calibers they now exist in, or the different variations that you can get, or even the different companies that make them. I just want to focus around the major physical and mechanical differences that are on these, so you can make a better buying decision if you have to choose between one or the other. If you can buy both, fantastic. If not, take this information and then decide what variation you would like on either or. So let's get into it. Let's start off with materials. The 1911 is going to be made primarily out of a carbon steel, so it's going to be pretty heavy, right around 2.5 pounds unloaded. The Beretta is going to weigh in at 2 pounds. The reduction in weight primarily because of the frame being made of aluminum alloy, and even though the slide is made out of a carbon steel, you're going to notice that because of the Beretta open slide design, a lot of it is missing, so that does aid in weight reduction. And according to Beretta, it also aids in reduction in jams for ejection failures like stovepiping and stuff like that. And I can see how that might work. I mean, it's a bigger area. I can see how debris is easier to get stuck in there, but should also be easier to clear malfunctions and debris. And as a side note, if you do happen to be in a fight and you lose your magazines, or one happens to get mucked up with mud or something, it's going to be a lot easier to feed individual rounds one at a time through here versus a 1911, which has a really small breech area here. So those are some of the advantages of having a open slide design. Now some of the disadvantages, and these are basically training issues. I did get my finger caught in this area when I racked the slide, and that's because I don't train with the Beretta, and I can see how somebody might be a little bit careless and might bump this against their skin if they're not used to firing a Beretta, because this is an exposed barrel. So those are some disadvantages and advantages of having an open slide design. Let me flip this over. Let's talk about the trigger guards, because that's another physical characteristic that's noticeable. 1911 trigger guard, a lot smaller. Beretta trigger, a lot bigger. So if you're going to use gloves, be careful. I can see maybe like mechanics gloves, really thin ones being used here, but if you got to use winter gloves, you might want to look for a 1911 with a little bit bigger trigger guard, but it's not going to get much bigger than that. So in that sense, the Beretta is going to have the advantage with the larger trigger guard. Since we're on the topic of triggers, let's talk about that. The 1911 trigger basically is a single action, meaning that the only job the 1911 trigger has is to send the hammer forward. And most 1911 owners will tell you that the trigger on a 1911 out of the box, and especially after it gets customized, is crazy. Let me show you why. So here you go. There's not a lot of take up here. Right there, the gun is going to be ready to fire. I'm going to send it forward. I'm going to show you where the reset is. Reset meaning it's going to be ready to take the next shot, and the take up is very little. It's going to be drastically different from when you see the Beretta trigger. So again, single action. Most gunsmiths really know how to work magic with a 1911 trigger, or at least in my area. So you might want to check with your gunsmiths in your area, because I don't have a lot of people that know how to work a Beretta trigger here. So let's get into the Beretta trigger. The Beretta trigger is a double action and single action, meaning that the double action mode can pull the hammer back and send it forward, and this is what it looks like. It's a very long and heavy pull coming out of the box. I'll do that twice. Okay, now once you squeeze off your first round in double action, the pistol will be in single action mode. So you see how it's kind of cocked back there. So you can see how much slack there is here before you hit the sear. I'm going to fire that, and then just so you can see where the reset is here. Oh, there it is there. Still a little bit of take up there for the single action. So those are the differences between the type of actions that they have. Now, as far as mechanisms on the inside, guys, I'm going to have to give it at least a trigger advantage to the 1911 because it is a straight back pull, meaning that when you pull your shot, when you break your shot here, it's basically a straight back pull. There's a trigger bar that goes around the magazine. The ending portion of the trigger bar hits a disconnector and releases the sear, sending the hammer forward. Very easy. Okay. The Beretta has a pivot design. I'm going to put this on safety so we can see it work. This little circle right here is the pivot head. When you pull that back, it's going to send the trigger bar forward. The trigger bar, once it's pulled forward, is going to raise a lever in here that's going to raise a firing pin block, sending the hammer forward there. So a little bit more complicated design as far as triggers goes, but again, that's why I think a lot of competition shooters use 1911s, because that straight trigger pull is a lot easier to manipulate than a pivot design on a Beretta. So those are the differences between those. Since we have these lined up here, let's have a look at grip angle. The 1911 has more of a slanted grip angle. The Beretta has more of a vertical, straight up and down angle. And I think that might have had a little influence on the how I grip the beaver tail area. I'm showing you this so you can see the thickness of the grip here. So you can see the Beretta has a lot thicker grip than the 1911. So the grip thickness combined with the grip angle, I think I was having a little bit of trouble getting the web of my hand in the beaver tail area. So guys, I really didn't mind it though. I got really tiny Smurf hands, and I actually really like the grip on the Beretta. So for those of you that have seen reviews, and if you got small hands, don't let that discourage you. Go out there and grip it, see if you like it, and if you like it, buy it. I mean, I didn't find that to a disadvantage at all. Unless maybe you're going to be doing, like, you know, single hand drops, but even still, I can still reach it. You just need an extended mag release there, so not a big deal. Let's talk about safety mechanisms. The Beretta safety basically works like this. When you cover the orange, it goes into safety. It's going to disconnect the trigger. Also, it's a decocker. So let's say you're walking around in single action mode and you want to make the gun safe. When you engage the safety, a block will drop right in the way of the hammer, blocking it from, you know, making the round go off, and also disconnecting the trigger at the same time. The 1911 will be carried cocked and locked like that. So you're actually ready to go to business. The only thing you got to do, as you can see here, it locks out the trigger, is drop the safety when you want to use it, and you just have to make sure that your grip safety is depressed. As you can see here, it's still not going to work, but once it's depressed, that'll release the hammer. So those are the differences in the safeties. The last thing I want to cover before going into a little bit of a break is the takedown process. And guys, I'm going to give it to the Beretta on this one. It's so much easier to take down. I'm going to cock the hammer here so we can get that procedure done. Basically, in a Beretta, on the right side of the gun, there's a button here. With the button, all you got to do is depress the button. There's a takedown lever right here. All you got to do is pull it down. What? That's crazy. Love that. So for a 1911, it's really going to depend on one thing. You may need a bushing wrench, depending on how much spring or how tight the spring is on the guide rod spring. Because what you got to do is push down the guide rod spring plug. Now this one isn't that bad, so basically I can push it down with my fingers like this. And what you got to do is rotate the bushing out of the way. So if the spring has a lot of tension in it, you're going to have to get a bushing wrench. But you know, this one's not that bad. So you can pull it out like that. And really the only thing that's left to do is you have to make sure this is cocked, because that's got to slide backwards. There's two notches on the slide, the takedown notch and then the slide stop notch. You want to get the takedown notch right over here where the slide stop is. So you just kind of keep moving it backwards until it gets somewhere in that area. Let me see here. And then there's a slide stop pin on that side. So you just kind of move it around. There you go, and I can feel it moving. You can move the slide back and forth. Push up, remove that slide pin, and then there you go. That's basically it. So depending on the stiffness of the spring, you may need a bushing wrench, but that's pretty much it, guys. What I'm going to do now is kind of take a quick break, reposition the frames in the barrel so I can talk about barrel lockup, because it has a lot to do with felt recoil and accuracy. So going to take a quick break, be back in a bit. Okay guys, we're back. Before getting to the discussion of barrel lockup, I just want to show you the slides because I got them off the guns. That's the 1911 slide there. Here's the open slide design of the Beretta. So you can see, of course, there's a huge chunk missing there. So that's what actually contributes to a lot of weight savings on the Beretta. Let's get into the barrel lockup. So a 1911 has a tilting barrel, or some people call it a floating barrel design, where it moves back and forth like this, and also moves downwards. So up and down and back and forth. So it's very important to have a solid lockup between the lugs, the barrel hood, and the slide to frame fit, which is right in this area. So that's the main reason customized 1911s cost so much, is because gunsmiths get in here and they make sure that that lug, these lugs here with the barrel hood and the frame, will match very precisely up to here. This is where the barrel hood fits in, so that here will fit into here, and that the lugs here will fit into the lugs on the frame, and that the slide to frame fit will fit really tightly in there. All of that contributing to a very accurate 1911. Now, on the other hand, the Beretta borrows something from the Walther P38 way back in the day. It uses a locking block design, which makes it possible for the barrel to just move back and forth like this. This is the locking block. You can see it moving up and down there. So basically what happens is it comes forward and it'll lock up when it goes back. That takes up some of the felt recoil. As well as some of the newer Berettas you're going to see have a little blue buffer tube on the inside. That's what that is. That actually was put in for the 40 caliber round, but they carried it over to the 45 and the 9mm caliber pistols as well. So you got a couple things going for you. The barrel lockup is very solid on a Beretta as well. There's not a lot of wiggle in these things, as well as two mechanisms contributing to felt recoil, the locking block and the buffer tube. Well guys, that's it. That's all I got to say about these two pistols. I hope I've given you enough information about these two to make an educated buying decision. If you like the information that you've heard, give me the thumbs up, and always guys, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And as always guys, I will catch you later.